Chris, you and Ross, we'll go Chris Ross and then we'll go to Lito. But y'all get to talk about Zion. Me and Lito did last night. What are your thoughts on what he said on the Gilbert Arenas podcast and then also showing up tonight? What is that? What are you seeing from that?
My thoughts is that Lito's a terrible human being. I mean, he thinks that Jordan Hawkins is a better basketball player than Dyson Daniels because Dyson doesn't score. Like those are my thoughts. Zion, yo, bro, man, good for. I heard a dude that is aiming to take ownership, aiming to speak for himself, aiming to inform the fan base, inform the world of some of the things that maybe he's learned. And, so often with Zion, we get stories from other folks, right? And so often to where when you hear Zion speak, people think or believe or have heard that, or someone's telling him to say that. Him pulling up to a Gilbert Arenas podcast and talking about some of the things, answering the questions that he did, there was no way he could, in my opinion, really prepare for it. Those didn't feel like PR written, statements or responses. Those sounded genuine. Now, action has to, follow it, right? We have to see these things and really and really dive into if he's just saying what's right for the moment, or if he's truthfully working behind these things to make sure that his process and his preparation, all these things are different going into, was it year 5 now? But I think it was just good at worst for him to pull up, completely surprising everybody from that to that kind of setup, that kind of platform, taking in those questions. And I think he kind of hit all of the responses that he gave out of the park. They sounded genuine, and I'm happy that it's him doing it, and not his stepdad or his agency group or anyone else.
Well said, Ross.
Yeah, I mean, I think Chris kind of hit it. I thought the important stuff he said was that it was really just him taking ownership of the situation. Him said, like, I don't remember the exact words he used, but something along the lines of like, I know this hasn't gone well, or like, I know I know I'm messing up, like whatever that line was, but it was a line of acknowledgement of like, yeah, I could have done better. Like, that's really all people, like the average fan wants to hear is like, it's cool. Like, we get it. You were 20. Like, you know how much dumb shit I did when I was 20 and 30 for that matter. But that's here nor there. Like, and that's really what people just wanted to hear. Like, if you, because to me, accepting that level of accountability for your own actions tells me you care enough to do it, right? Because if you didn't care, you'd be like, it ain't my problem. And so I don't know, maybe there's a little bit of maturing happening there. Look, we've already heard from other players that he's got a chip on his shoulder. I think that's a reasonable response to what's happened over the last year. So I don't know. I mean, for me, with Zion, it's never really been about his words because he just doesn't say a lot. So that's why I think this speaks, is a little more important, but it's going to be about his actions. How does he show up? How does he look in preseason? I think him being there in Vegas, like sitting on the sideline today, like it does mean a little something. So it's still going to be about his actions and not his words, but it was nice to hear him. It was refreshing to just take ownership of like, yeah, it hadn't gone great, but I'm doing things to fix the way things have gone. And like, that's really all you can ask for.
And Ross, he looked comfortable. Like, when you watch Zion and, any of these interviews or, him talking to a lot of these players, he looks, uncomfortable, right? It's someone who just, he looks shy. He looks, I don't know, man, he looked really, really relaxed sitting down, having that conversation, talking about some tough things, right? Talking about some things, that I'm sure, hit home, right? I mean, I wouldn't have expected him to talk about dieting or talk about the hurdles that he's had to overcome with that and making, and bringing in the money into the factor and so on and so forth. It was just cool to shit, he cursed. I mean, he just seemed to be relaxed in that setup, in that format, on that platform. And I think it, like Ross mentioned, we got to see action behind it. But it's good to see that he looks like he's in a good place physically and mentally. And what is going to be another important season for him and his franchise.
Yeah. Lito. Like I know you talked about it a little bit last night, but back-to-back appearances in public looked happy.
Go him, man. Be human. Be human, man. I like to see it. You know what I'm saying? Go out, enjoy your life being a young millionaire, bro. Like don't let nobody take this moment from you, because you're gonna live in the shadows and shit, and you go look back at this time and be like, I should have celebrated this more. I should have lived in this moment. I should have been a part of going to summer league with my guys. You know what I'm saying? Like your NBA career is like finite. You don't know what tomorrow is gonna hold as far as anything. And like I get and this is not, I'm not dissing him. I'm just saying from a perspective of somebody who has like lived this life. Obviously, I'm not a millionaire, but I'm just saying like somebody, cause I'd be incredulous. Y'all be sick. You thought Zion was never mind. Yo, listen, I always say this. God knows who to make rich. I say that all the time. Like, he knows whose hands to put money in. But for real, like Zion, man, listen, I understand how anxiety could be going into places like, Summer League or TV podcasts and all these other things, but like it really felt like, to echo what Chris and Ross said, it really seemed like he was just comfortable within himself. And I think that's the difference. And like he was sometimes he comes off as cliche-ish. Sometimes you don't feel like you get his authentic self. You know what I'm saying? Like, for a long time, I feel like we were wondering who Zion Williamson was, because we get the brand Zion like when he's in front of the camera, but like, man, sometimes you gotta peel back the layers of shit and just let people know who you are. And yo, yeah, I'm struggling with my diet. Yeah, yo, who the fuck ain't? You know what I'm saying? Like, okay, like just because you're in the NBA, that don't make it easier. Just because you're a supreme generational athlete, like none of that gets easier for you, because you have more access and more influence, and you could literally you could wake up today and say, hey, you know what, I want to go to South Africa. Like, I want to do this shit. Like, I don't even want to be in this country. Just like things like that I feel like, and I think him talking to basketball players, retired basketball players, somebody like Gail, who, I mean, you know what Gail went through, what happened with Gail. And I feel like maybe it's that type of platform where he feel he could be open and honest about. You know what I'm saying? And I'm saying all that to say, Zion, dog, if you want to talk, like, I got a podcast, like we'll chop it up. So like it's all good. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
that'd be awesome. I love that. Chris, let me ask you this. What does it mean for Zion to see people like Larry Nance, Trey Murphy, CJ McCollum talk about him, and only in a positive way, especially on national media platforms? Obviously, you had Larry Nance in the tweet yesterday. Trey Murphy was getting interviewed in Summer League, said that, he has a chip on his shoulder. I'm talking to him every day. And then CJ, obviously, I forget, a couple weeks ago on a podcast. That's got to feel good for Zion to have his teammates basically knowing that the guy's back.
If you're in a situation where you're constantly being criticized for every move you make or you don't make, your career hasn't gotten off to the start that you expected or that you planned for it to, and man, I mean, under that microscope, I don't care who it is, you need the support. And I think you need the public support, because there's so much public criticism, right? They may not be coming from your teammates, but it's coming from fans. It's coming from other former players. It's coming from, and maybe in some cases, former teammates, and it's loud. And you hear that constantly over and over and over and over again. That's a big weight to hold, on top of all the expectations that you have for yourself. And you're a part of a brand. You're a part of, the future of a franchise. Some would still call them the face of the franchise. So you need as much support as you can possibly get. And I think that, I'm more than sure that he gets it that he gets the support in the right places, offline or privately. But hearing not just your teammates, but your veterans come out and publicly support you and take up for you and stick up for you when not a lot of people are consistently. I mean, I think it's important for that person's psyche. We've heard him talk about, we've heard the stories about him and Teaspoon and, and the crying and the mental health element. Like, that's real, being that young, trying to figure this whole thing out. Life, right? It's tough. So having veterans that you got to go to work with, that you go into battle for every day, regardless of what y'all have been through, for better or for worse. And it's like, I mean, I think about this, I thought about this the other day. Like, I mean, Zion just might have to be reminded that he's not a fuck up. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, that's at some point, if you're a Zion, like, I thought about, like, yeah, I might start thinking I'm just a fuck up. Like, I might. So to be reminded that, no, I'm not a fuck up. This shit happens. I'm young. I got to figure this out. But these people support me when maybe portion of the world doesn't. The people that know me have my back. I mean, I think it goes a long way for somebody in his shoes.
Ross, go ahead.
No, yeah, I think just to piggyback on what Christian said too, and I think it's doubly important. I'm not going to delve into the dude's personal life, but like, it's doubly important when you're now dealing with, like, the criticism. Some of the criticism you're receiving is like off the court stuff. It's one thing to play like shit and have a bunch of people be like, yeah, dude's playing like shit. It's another to have people start like digging into your personal life, digging into your, what you've got going on with your family or your whatever, right? And so I think getting that, like, positive reinforcement, positive support from guys that are older than him, that have sort of been through some of these things, have had teammates go through some of these things, that like can bring you together, I think, in a way that maybe even like basketball stuff can't. So that's really, I think, for me, what I take away from it.
Lito, go ahead.
Speaking as somebody who was a fuck up, I can totally relate to what Chris just said. Like, sometimes you do shit happens, like life be life, and you get caught in listening to your subconscious, and like, that's the thing that never really cuts off. It never stops talking. Like, you can't silence it. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can do whatever you want to do, but if you're not in a good space mentally, like, all you're gonna focus on is the negative, and that's gonna impact everything. That's gonna throw your whole shit out of whack. So yes, you should be surrounded by love. You should be surrounded by people who have, like, good intentions for you. You know what I'm saying? And I think maybe that's where, he got out of line with his, maybe he was surrounding himself with people who didn't have his best interests at heart. And it sounds like he realizes that, and it sounds like he's on a path now to improve that. I want to say one thing, Justin, we didn't talk about yesterday. Yo, why Rick Bucher be lying?
That was weird.
Like, why you lie like that? Rick, look at me. Rick, you lie. You're a liar. We don't like that. We don't like that down here, Rick. Don't do that. Don't do that, Rick. We got video evidence. We got proof of that. Like, we see the floaters. We see the jump. He shot jumpers in games, Rick. What are you doing?